What's up? What's up? What's up? What's up? It's Saturday night. How we doing? I did an impulse stream because there was some shit that happened, and I was like, man, let me go ahead and address this. Well, actually, I'm not addressing anything. That's a bait and switch. Actually, we're supposed to have Anthony Ali up here. He was doing a video stream, and it was getting kind of interesting. But then there was this gentleman that he was doing this stream with, and he kept, derailing things. So hopefully we can get Anthony up here. If not, we can talk about some videos that I'm going to be working on real soon. Whose book? We can't be talking about who we talking about. We're not talking about Jesse. Are you serious? Put a one in the chat if that's who you're talking about. What's up, Cynical? Now, I don't read, coloring books. So I don't know what he's doing over there, seeing as you can't really read coloring books. I do like the adult coloring books. I use those with my clients pretty often. Hell, I use them myself because I threw this stream together. That's why you didn't get the notification. I threw that shit together. But Anthony was supposed to be coming up, but shit happens. But until he gets up here, we can talk about what I want to talk about. So, for those of you who were a part of my video stream, we watched The Free State of Jones. And I'm a person who's big on research. I don't like watching movies and expecting to get anything biographical from any of those. No, not yet. I have not checked that out just yet. I have been, so that's, see, I'm getting to it. I'm getting to it. So I started doing some research on specifically Newton Knight because that movie that we watched completely ahistorical. Like, for example, that the slave that supposedly helped him to find the swamp where all the other refugees and all, well, they're not really refugees, but deserters and runaway slaves were, that was totally made up. The whole thing, like most of that movie was made up. And it was really designed to make Newton Knight look like some type of hero. When this nigga was literally encouraging his kids to engage in incest so they can sustain whiteness in their family. Like, this nigga was a terrorist. So I'm reading this really excellent book about Newton Knight, and I'm getting the real lowdown on this guy. And it's like with all people, it's a mixed bag. And if we're looking at historical context, I guess he is progressive in a way, especially when he looks at race relations. But even if you look at it like that, it's still an individual who has a lot of anti-black thoughts and anti-black attitudes that he embedded into his children. Well, you know how Hollywood do it. They First of all, you're not gonna have Matthew McConaughey in no movie where he's calling people the N word and shit like that. Matthew McConaughey has crafted a career that is probably one of the, he got in a little bit of trouble like 20 years ago, and it was for smoking weed. So, like, for the most part, Matthew McConaughey has had a very good career. So, if he's going to take a movie that has anything to do with slavery or the World War II or anything that's any type of horrifying historical event, he is going to be the good guy in that movie. Even if they have to change very important details to make him the hero. But, man, when I read that he encouraged incest, encouraged it, and he had those kids isolated from the rest of the town, and in a very aggressive part of Mississippi. Because you bear in mind, this is right after Reconstruction, so you got a whole bunch of bitter ass white people who lost every fucking thing, and you got Newton Knight who's walking around like he's some type of hero. Man, the shit that those kids went through. So it's just crazy. Yes, I knew about that other detail also, Fran. I focus mostly on the smoking weed part. But let's get into that because that Newton Knight shit was crazy. I don't know if Anthony got a grip of kids. He may be doing daddy duties right now. So trust me, I get it. But we can definitely get into this little mini documentary. So, for those of you who don't know who Newton Knight is, Newton Knight was a Unionist. During the Civil War, a Unionist was a person who lived in the South who was still loyal to the Union. Contrary to popular belief, when the Southern states seceded from the United States, it wasn't very popular. Only the rich planter class was really into the idea of secession. Everyone else was like, I don't really like Negroes, but I don't necessarily think we should leave the Union. That was the general attitude of most of the white people in the South. Unionists, however, had a very unique attitude where they would not only not only were they for the North, but they would actually fight against the South within. So Newton Knight was a Unionist, very popular Unionist. He was the leader of this kind of a ragtag group comprised of deserters of the Confederate Army, runaway slaves, and pretty much they rebelled against the Confederate Army. They basically were able to take one piece of Mississippi, very small county called Jones, and keep the Confederate Army out of it. It was it was a lot of reasons why they were able to do it. This was right after the Battle of Vicksburg. Mississippi was already sliced in half. It was a whole bunch of reasons why they were able to sustain Jones County. But it was still an impressive feat in itself. But Newton Knight, who had a black concubine and a white wife and had them kind of under the same roof, the more that I read about this guy, he looks more like one of those, cult leaders where he has all these different wives and all these different kids and he's encouraging incest and all this crazy shit. It's giving more of that and not really a hero. You know, I'm not a big fan of the idea of a white savior, but if I was to call somebody a white savior, I want more of a John Brown, not so much of a Newton Knight. But we're gonna learn a little bit about Newton Knight from one of his descendants. Now, mind you, his descendants are both white and black, or blackish. But the black side typically doesn't communicate with the white side and vice versa, even all these generations later. So let's get this going. Oops. I don't think I'm sharing. Hold on one second. So I guess this woman will be considered an MGM, seeing that she's not a first generation biracial. But in fairness, since Newton Knight encouraged incest, a lot of these MGMs are, cousins with their cousins, and they're like double cousins, I guess. So, this is a very unique family tree. This isn't the common MGM situation. And I bring this up to make a point. There's this lie going around that light skinned people and mixed race people of the, you know, earlier years that they encouraged incest to sustain whiteness. That was not a common practice. Only random folks did that. For example, Newton Knight.
Would you please state your name for me?
My name is Jeanette Smith.
What year was you born, Miss Smith?
I was born January 1st, 1940.
In what county?
I was born in Jones County, Mississippi. So, the name of the city. And my family in So were the Knights and the Musgroves. My daddy was Musgrove, and my mother was the um, granddaughter of Newton Knight, and um, he was captain of the Free State of Jones.
When she says captain, she really means he was an orderly of the Confederate Confederate Army, and he deserted, and a part of his own ragtag group, which was called the Newton Knight Company, he was their captain. That is a point of contention, specifically in the South, because when you try to claim um, some type of military designation, and you don't have that, especially a person like Newton Knight, that made him an even more hated figure in the South. But Just had to add that in. Plus, I'm a military kid. Like I really respect the military.
Most people are familiar with Captain Knight. He was a captain who deserted the Confederacy and joined the Union Army because he didn't believe in owning slaves, even though his grandfather had owned slaves, but he didn't. Newton Knight was my great grandfather. He his his grandfather purchased my great grandmother Rachel on the blocks out of Mobile. She was at that time about 13 years old. She had two uh, mixed children, they call them mulatto, when his grandfather bought her. Their land was on the edge of Jones County and Jasper County. Newton Knight, when he purchased, his grandfather purchased Rachel, his grandfather gave him Rachel. He he had a relationship with Rachel, and
Pause. This is super relevant. So Rachel was actually owned by another family member somewhere in Georgia. They had owned her since she was a child. There's a lot of question about her heritage. She's clearly a mixed race person. There, there are rumors that she is distantly related to Newton Knight because previously she was owned by a cousin. And when she was sent to Newton Knight's family, his grandfather, she was about 13 and she had already had kids. And ultimately, she would have additional children with Newton Knight's brothers. This gives me the impression that this girl, like, think about that for a second. You're 13 years old, you already got two kids. So you're already being, like, abused sexually. Then you get sent to another family, and then the process starts all over again. So she's more of a person who I view a traumatized survivor of sex trafficking. It's more like that. And when you look up Rachel, she comes off like that. She comes off more like a person who has been traumatized for a very long time. And the movie made it look like she was just a jolly little person. Also, the movie made it look like Newton Knight didn't know her. Newton Knight had known her for a very long time, since I think he was like 16 years old. So, yeah, that movie really upset me because they did a very good job of making him look like a hero when really he's just as predatory as the rest of the members of his family.
out of that relationship, uh, they had about 7 children. My grandfather, Henry Knight, was one of those children, and that was my mother's father. So, because of him integrating, she was mulatto herself. She was mixed. So, he purchased her strictly for personal reasons. I understand that the Mormons had came down and they had did a lot of um, pioneering and witnessing and recruiting memberships in Jones County. I guess he came up with the concept that he could have as many wives as he could afford, but he was the only one that started crossing the racial lines. So he had my grandmother had a house right beside his house. So he raised children by his white wife and by my grandmother.
By his concubine.
And his
She was.
concubine. But she was a slave.
She was a slave.
She was his property. So it's just it's just amazing when you think about things like that and think about how people became mixed and how they can have hatred when actually they don't know who their own relatives are.
Do you remember Rachel? Can you recall her?
No, she passed early, and before I was even born. They said she died because she had too many children, and I don't even remember my grandmother and my grandfather. They died before I was born. So there are a lot of books that have been written about our family, and just recently, my cousin has written a book about Rachel's children, and it is wonderful to get the other side of the story where you trace the genealogy and you know exactly where you come from. The difference about New Children by Rachel, they were on the birth certificate that he was the father, and he gave her about 180 acres of land. Her land was up there by the other children's land. He also, when he bore those children by her, the two children that she came with, and his own white children, he had them to marry each other, try to keep, as you could keep breeding more white into them, the black would run out. So there was just
Listen to how she talks. Still the slave ideology of breeding people, even all these generations later, because that's how he thought. I mean, man, I'm not done with this book. I'm only on chapter 7. So I'm nowhere near finished. So far, it's not looking good. But I plan on doing an analysis on just the Newton Knight story and also a focus on Rachel. Rachel was actually a goat. Even though she was traumatized, she went through a lot. Rachel was actually one of the stops on the Underground Railroad if you were coming from the Deep South. Not many slaves escaped from the Deep South through the Underground Railroad. She was one of the few stops because she had a lot of agency. Rachel was a goat. We're gonna definitely do a spotlight on her real soon because, like, if you don't do enough research, you would just assume she was either a traumatized girl who was just passed around through the Knight family, or if you go by what the movie shows, she was some free black person slave in name only, who basically walked around Mississippi free as fuck, able to do whatever the hell she wants to do. It was the movie just really upset me because I know that that was not how it was for her. And these movies, I know people will get triggered by slave movies. I'm cool with slave movies. They just got to be historically accurate. And that doesn't necessarily mean seeing people get beat all day. But don't remix the story to make people look like they had more agency and more freedom because people will start to believe that's what happened. But getting back to the weird incest story.
uh, cousins marrying cousins, and we were called the white Negro. And it was just like you lived in like a little secluded town. Nobody bothered Newt's night children. Not
White
even
or black?
white or black. He was one of the most powerful men in the county. That's why uh, he wanted to have his own county. He wanted to declare Jones County to be Free State of Jones. He wanted to succeed from the other parts of the South. He wanted his own county.
What do you think his purpose for that was?
I don't think he believed in slavery.
He wanted interracial
Yeah,
relationships.
I don't think he believed in slavery. He didn't believe, you know, the way the South was doing. He just thought that the concept of sharecropping, as you're talking about now, but that it could be done and people could work for their living and eventually own their own land. And this was after the slaves were freed. So I think he has so many different ideas about things. He just didn't think that there should be anybody, any preference over white married white and black married black and that kind of thing. And that's why he wanted to form his own state.
Now, tell us about the sharecropping period. Did you ever meet?
There's more. I'll actually put the link to that video in the chat, but I got Anthony on the line, so let me let him on. Ant, what's up with you?
Yo, what up, man? My bad, yo. I was like on another live stream, so I caught it. I jumped in a little bit late, but this is an interesting story, man. I never even I was about to actually watch that movie, but I stopped watching it. I didn't know this is what that was about.
I mean, it's not a bad movie in the sense where it's well acted. The action sequences, they do what they need to do. My issue is when you're telling the story of someone's life, especially if they've had a hard life, and you're just remixing it and making it seem more of a love story than what it really was. Because these stories are not always a great story. When you watch a movie about 9/11, you know what you're going to get. You're going to get a movie about tragedy. When you watch a movie about slavery, there's going to be moments of failures and tragedy, but there's also going to be at some point some victories, and they could have done both, and the movie didn't do that. But it was an okay movie overall.
Yeah, I completely agree with you saying. They do try to do that. They try to, make it all romantic and all that stuff. Is that the movie where they was like eating pig in like the swamp or something like that?
They were
Um
eating dog. I think it was dog and shit.
yeah, I don't know what made me turn the movie off, but I was watching a little bit of it and I turned it off, but now I
Yeah,
feel like I need to watch it.
yeah, it's an interesting movie, and it also they didn't do a very good job of connecting these two timelines. But in the movie, they also deal with Newton Knight's, I think, great grandson, who was apparently trying to marry a white woman in Mississippi, and there was a big question about who his mother was because Newton Knight had his white wife and his mixed wife on the same property, having kids at the same time. So there's a question of, did you belong to Rachel or did you belong to Serena? So that they did do a very good job of tying those two things together, but they tried to, and it kind of just shows you these issues are not necessarily black white mixed issues. I mean, once you're if you're adjacent to blackness in any way, they kind of put you in the same legal category, especially if they're trying to prevent you from getting resources, prevent you from progressing. And I guess that's what they were basically trying to show with that movie when they connected those two timelines. It's an okay movie, though. You should check it out.
Yeah, I'm gonna definitely check it out. So, are you reading that book? I just looked it up. It's pretty expensive on Amazon.
I think they have an Audible version, so see if
Oh,
it's
okay.
available on Audible. So, yeah, you'd be surprised. Audible has pretty much everything.
Yeah, I'll look into that. But what happened, man? What happened with the other stream?
What do you mean?
It says about that stream.
Oh yeah, I wanted to learn. You were talking about Monica, what she was doing, and just we couldn't really stay on path with that. So I wanted to give you an opportunity to really just give your feedback about what you thought about that video and just people's opinions on just you know other content creators and what they're trying to do with their platforms.
Oh yeah, so so on my channel we have played a video. There's a YouTuber, Mulatto Vanguard. He went to Europe. He did a video with a woman named Afro-European Monica, and I didn't get to see the whole video. I did see him share it, but then I seen a podcast with somebody kind of like trashing it, talking junk about Afro-European Monica. I thought that was pretty distasteful. Because she don't got nothing to do with any of those beefs that Vanguard might have with her. So I felt like, that was kind of, that was whack. I didn't really like that. So I was just talking about that. And we watched a little bit of it on my channel, but we didn't really get to go through it. But I would say this, I do think it's cool that people are meeting up with other content creators, because a lot of times we talk about that, but it never really comes, to fruition for, obvious reasons, right? People have these, a lot of people hide their identities in these spaces and they're not, you don't know who these people are. And then some people are really creep, so you don't want to hang out with them. You know what I mean? But they were able to do it,
Right.
so I thought it was cool. Um, and yeah, I didn't really like the fact that people trying to really just down it, like let them do their stuff, especially people who are allegedly trying to say they're not in the space of talking about racial topics anymore, right?
Right. No, I definitely hear you there. Now, when it comes down to Monica specifically, I've been watching her content for about a year now. She has very diverse, interesting conversations. I've never seen her just do anything remotely problematic. I've been in this space for a while. I've done some problematic shit. I've cussed out multiple people. But I've not seen her move like that. So when I see a person who is moving the right way and they still get attacked, it leads me to believe that there's nothing you can do to not get attacked. So and I hope
Right,
that
right, right.
Monica doesn't take that too personally because I think she makes fantastic content.
Yeah, and it's unfortunate too because a lot of people got scared away from making the mixed content. So, and it's sad that people like that have to worry about. It's one thing like if you are like you just said, you haven't seen her make any type of content where she's attacking anybody. And from me, like I skimmed her page, yeah, I don't really see that either. It doesn't look like she looks very like mature. You know what I mean?
Right.
Especially with the video with her and Vanguard. So I'm like, okay, why go at her? Let her just do her stuff and move on. But some people, they like to tag people and I've seen it all, like, and it's really, like I said, it's just kind of, disgusting.
Yeah, it is. And honestly, I'm a person that, I can get dirty. I'm not going to sit here and be all, I'm an angel. But what I don't do is go after people who are literally innocent. They're not doing shit. They're just minding their own business. And I feel like this is a phenomenon that happens in all black adjacent spaces. Because you can go to the divestors and you see the exact same thing. Where if you're cool with a certain content creator and another content creator doesn't like it, well, guess what? You can be collateral damage. All of a sudden now you're on the live stream and you're being dissed, and people are exposing you, and it's like, how the hell did I get in this situation? And it's unfortunate, and it makes me wonder if it's just a way that people who are in the black adjacent experience, whether you're monoracial and mixed, do we just have an issue with communicating with each other where we just gotta naturally go to the lowest of the low, or is this an American thing? What is your opinion?
I mean, that's a good point. Like, I think it's multifaceted, right? Like, so you got an issue with people like maybe there's like an age thing, and then I heard Vanguard say something like being an intelligence gap, and I thought that was hilarious because I was like, that's
Okay.
true. There could be an age gap. There could be an intelligent gap. It could be all of those in the one. It depends on the individual. You already know some people might have the maybe in their personal life they're not getting no attention, so they gotta they just come online hiding their identities, trying to stir up trouble,
Yeah.
looking for men to give them some attention. Then you got people who are just straight up deranged. They just want to fight all day, and they get like a enjoyment. Like, we've seen these people growing up, people who get enjoyment out of fighting people and trying to start trouble. So there's people like that. And then again, there could be this an intelligence gap. You got people who are here really trying to, like, even your analysis of this interview made me it convinced me. I'm looking up on Amazon, like, let me see what this is. You know what I mean? So and you could just do that because you have that, you've been to college, you know how to analyze things. And some of these people haven't been to college, they don't read books. You know what I'm saying? So again, you try to do
And look,
videos with them. Yeah.
I was just gonna say, I'm a person that doesn't necessarily subscribe to the idea that you gotta go to college to know things. Like, you can pick up a book and read it without necessarily paying for tuition, but it's a lot about how you give it up when you come on these panels. If you come to these panels and you don't seem like you're well read, and you are on the offensive, and you are super defensive, it's gonna give us the impression that you're either immature or you're not that intelligent. And I think that's what happens a lot. But I didn't mean to interject. Go ahead, sir.
No, you're completely correct. You don't have to go to college. In fact, one of the YouTubers I watched that I respect, the Pat David. He, a multimillionaire, very intelligent person, never went to college, read books. But I mean, it's just, even so, you can gain a lot of intelligence without school, just from, reading books. You know what I'm saying? Just things like that. And I feel like there's people here who don't really try to educate themselves. They don't try to better themselves in any way. So they're kind of stuck in a very immature mindset. Like, they never matured past teenage, their teenage, brain. So when, now they're 40 years old, 45 years old, they come on the internet and they start operating on that young, immature mindset. And then you have people like us or something. We're trying to have some real, like you said, sometimes we could get a little messy. We could, get into the BS, but at the same time, we're also going to give y'all some educational content and help stimulate your mind a little bit. It ain't going to be just ratchet all the time. But I don't know. I just didn't like how they came at her. I don't even know her. I don't watch her content, but I could just see again that she doesn't look like she's into any of that stuff. And it's just like, yeah, some people are just here for the BS, and it is what it is.
And I hope that in the future that I'm a little less tacky with my responses. I know I can be a little coarse, especially if someone comes at me I just start doing throat punches. That's just how I am, real life and on YouTube. But I'm starting to realize that's not the best way to handle things, because even though I feel like I'm being saucy and everyone can, handle it, maybe everybody can't handle it. Some people actually get super duper offended, and then they start doing this whole revenge. They have to get back at you. They have to find a way to get information on you. And I'm like, look, you'll never be able to find the information like I can find the information. You might as well just give up, sir. So it becomes this weird situation where everyone's just beefing online. So I'm trying my best not to beef with as many people. It's hard though, because they test you.
Yeah, they
They
drag you
test
into
you.
it. Yeah,
But
even, yeah.
I was just gonna say, specifically with this podcast, I know which one you're referring to. I've checked it out. It's rather dry. Basically, it's just people talking shit about people they claim they don't care about, and it's like if you
Right,
don't
right.
care
It
about them,
was it
don't
was
talk
dry.
about.
You could tell. You could tell at the end they were just trying to find something. Like, oh, what else? What else? And I'm
Oh my
over here, like
god.
I said, I'm at work bored as hell. So I'm like, yeah, what else? Like, come on, that's it. Like, that shit was whack. Like, I mean, I gave y'all the view, but I mean, that shit was corny. And like I said, from people who are talking about, oh, I'm leaving y'all behind. I'm gonna start talking about dating or whatever y'all gonna talk about. And it's just like, no, you're not. You're gonna go back to the BS and start dragging people into your little beast because that's all you could talk about. Like they didn't mention me, which is cool. Like I'm not here to diss them or nothing, but I'm just saying I'll just my opinion on it was like, come on, like don't get people involved that don't want to be involved. Because like even when I came and learned about those spaces, I was like, look, I'm neutral, and they got mad at me for that. They saw you in my chat room and they came at me for that. Like I'm like, since when are we coming at people because of people that's in someone else's chat room? Like, come on, man. Like,
Oh yeah, it's petty. You want to know how all this started? You want to know the origin of all of this? The
yeah,
origin
yeah.
of
What's
all of
up?
this. I called Golden Goddess the Olden Goddess in a chat room once, and that's how all of this started. And from that point forward, she has been just on this fucking war path. And it's like, really? That's all it takes? But now that I look at other people in her interactions with you, her interactions with Fran, her interactions with other biracial people that she's scared out of the space, I'm like, it had nothing to do with what I said. This is just how this person interacts. This is how certain people interact like that with the rest of the world, with just aggression and hostility, and not necessarily just calling her out. We know people in our life sometimes. We may even have family members who we can't even deal with because anytime we interact with that person, it becomes a negative interaction. So like my thing
Right.
is this: if you don't like people, you think they're irrelevant, you think your channel is better, okay, okay, I'll let you have that delusion. Just don't mention those people. Do your shit, make your content. No one's gonna watch it, but do it, and rock out. Other people will do the same, and we'll be all good. I think the problem is people don't want to do that last part, and that's leaving people alone. That part is just I'm not
Right.
fucking with that. I don't get it personally.
I completely agree. Like, yeah, that person, I was cool with that person in the beginning, and I felt like that person felt some type of way that I wasn't really sharing their content, I guess. Or maybe I was working with people and not working with her. Maybe she felt like, oh, I started this space. Why aren't you here? I don't know. I don't know the real
That's
reason
too
why
much.
she came at me, but I know when we pieced it up the first time, she came at me again because I guess because I kicked Jose off my panel, so that I guess means you're gonna attack me now. Like, you know what I mean? Like, but really it was because she didn't like that you were in my chat room. That was the fact, that was the real thing, because after that, she went on Jose's page and she's like, oh, if I see certain people in your chat, I'm not gonna go to your page. So I knew she was talking about me. So I'm like, it is what it is. I mean, you don't have to, but just don't talk about me at that, leave it alone. But again, some people, that's just how they get content. And then what I don't like is that you're gonna say something and then try to say, hey guys, go to my members only while I talk about somebody. Like like, come
Ain't
on, like,
nobody
really?
going to that members only.
Yeah, who going to that? A
Nobody's.
couple people, the old man and the Irby. Like, come on.
You gotta be real. You gotta be real bored. Like honestly, I'm gonna be very transparent. I am not that interesting to want to pay money to hear somebody talk shit about me. Like you gotta have
Right.
something else going on in your life. Anything.
Nah, exactly, bro. Like, nah.
Play
And that's the
Uno
thing, like,
online. Do something. Like
I didn't really like, just to say names, like I didn't even really have like a real issue with Golden Goddess at all. Like I don't really even care about her like that. But her little sidekick, you know what I mean? I just feel like she's the one who actually said something about, if you notice in that podcast, she's the one that's kind of trying to stir up stuff, trying to tell this dude, oh, they're calling you got smoke for us, but these people are calling you a pedo and all this stuff. So you could see her trying to stir up trouble, like, and she thinks she's slick and she's not. And then she'll say, she's the one who actually said something about Afro P and Monica. Why, Golden Goddess wasn't even trying to say that. So I'm like, this is your little sidekick that's stirring up a lot of trouble. And that's part of the reason why, like, again, we have fell out too, because this woman on her on her little channel called me like a, I don't know if I can swear on here, but the B
yeah,
word. Yeah. So
knock
she called
yourself
me a
out.
bitch on her page. Like, you know what I'm saying? So she didn't like me from the beginning. So I'm just like, it's that person right there that to me is the bigger issue. But she tries to hide behind Gigi a little bit. But yeah.
In fairness to all parties involved, we grown as fuck. Can't nobody make you do nothing from over the internet. You do it because you want to do it. If somebody say something on the side of you, or not really on the side of you, digitally on the side of you, if they say something crazy and you don't say nothing and it's your platform, then I won't necessarily say it came out of your mouth, but that's a dry cosign. So at the end of the day, I mean, I can't blame the moose for everything. Both of them are responsible for their behavior. Both of them. I mean, at the end of the day, if they don't want people to talk shit about them, they shouldn't talk shit about other people. Both of these women are well over the age of 30. I know that Moose told you she was 26. She is 36. All right? Like, we are all grown. So
Facts.
you you cannot deal with people. And I know these niggas is busy. Like, there's no way you got all them cheering and you not busy. There's no way that you have some kind of social life and you're not busy. Like, how can you fit some time in to do this? Like, I don't get it. But
Yeah,
any
and it's
final
true. Like,
thoughts on this topic before I move on to the next topic?
yeah, I'll just say it's a fact, man. Like it's like, and I think Fran said, yeah, she thrives on conflict. She doesn't feel alive unless there's some drama. But that's true. There's some people that do that, and in this space, we see that
Mm.
that person is like that. It's like you try to go away for a few weeks, come back and start stirring up trouble. But it's just funny how you say you're done with the space and you're moving on, but then you make a podcast and you're still talking about the same people you allegedly moved on from. So I guess I'm done with that, man.
I worked at this facility. It was a facility where there were kids. They were all, children with history of trauma, sometimes substance abuse issues. Most of them were Native American. And this is my first time really being around strictly Native American. So it was a culture shock for me. And I remember specifically there was this one young lady. She was about like 16. She looked like Cartman, a Native American version of Cartman. She was very nasty, very mean, very hateful to this one very lovely, Native American girl whose father was dying of cancer. She was very pretty, very shy. She didn't really say much to anything, like to anybody. She was very like, you could tell she was very afraid to even speak to people. And I think people assumed that she was a punk. So she was on the phone with her father. Mind you, he's literally in hospice dying. And Native American Cartman starts talking shit. Like, talking just crazy shit about, oh, she needs to get off the phone, blah, 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 just causing drama. This was her behavior all the time. In groups, she's starting drama. In the lunchroom, she's starting drama. That was the type of client she was. Well, the young lady turned around after she hung the phone up and just started mollywopping her. And I couldn't imagine this young lady ever being able to slam this big girl like this. But I let her get a couple of licks in first before I actually broke it up. And I was like, wow. It's like she reminds me of that kind of a client where it's like, you got to really like go off on you or like do something to get your attention to get you to go away. And, it's unfortunate, you can't really always attack folk, and I'm not really trying to, but like sometimes that's the only language people understand is attack. I don't get that.
Yeah, and that's the thing. It's sad because it's like, there really could be a space to talk about these issues, you know what I mean, and these things. But it's like you have people that, and it ain't just them, right? We know it ain't just them, but you have these other
No,
people that
definitely.
are just trying to constantly just, again, talentless people that just want to drag people down and try to just harass people all day instead of just making the content, you know what I mean? Like, and act like you
Yeah.
want to piece it up and be cool, but then behind the scenes, it's not really like that. You know what I mean? You talking
YouTube
all
is
your
too big.
shit, you know.
YouTube is way too big for you to still interact with people you don't like or still talk about people you don't like. It's
Right, unless you
literally
want
millions
to,
of
right?
channels. But here's a topic that I don't know if it's a topic that you know about, but you might. You probably do. What is your opinion of this whole situation, especially as a person who has children? To my understanding, you have like, you've dealt with the baby mama situations. What is your opinion of the situation with Blueface and Krishan specifically? Or is
I'm
that
gonna be
something you don't
honest,
even pay
like
attention to it?
I don't like I've seen like videos of her him fighting her dad and shit, you know what I mean? But I don't know too
Yeah.
much. I'm not deep into it like that. I just know they got a crazy ass relationship. I know that.
Well, so there's a big question about, holding women accountable, especially when they're like mothers. Like it's almost like you can't criticize women when they're mothers, even if they're like bad mothers. So there's a question about Krishan if she's a good mother. She just had her son, and she was in the Walmart holding the baby on a harness, and that harness wasn't looking too good. So I'm going to show you the video. I'm confident you didn't put a multiple kids in a harness. You know what a harness is supposed to look like and what it's not supposed to look like. So hold on one second. Did they scrub this off the internet? All right, here it is. I hope this is one of those videos where somebody's talking for like 15 minutes. It's her talking for like 15 minutes. So the whole thing with Krishan Rock that kind of bothers me is like I was rooting for this young lady. I really wanted her to win. Like I feel like she has a lot of talent. There's something about her. She has like I call it the X factor. It's like you can't really quantify what it is. It's something it just makes you unique, and I can't really find the video of her in the harness. But as you can see, the way that harness situation is. Let me see if I can zoom in. So that's a little dude
Yeah, I can see it. I'm looking it up on Google
shaped like a
also.
C
Yo,
in that
that's
harness.
crazy.
And I'm just thinking to myself, like, how you think that look right? Like, even if you never had any kids, let's just say you never had kids a day in your life. Like, at some point, you held a baby. Like, at some point, you were introduced to a
Right,
child,
right.
and the first thing they say is support the head. So why the hell is your baby hanging over
Facts,
like
facts,
a
facts.
damn like a fanny pack? Like, I was confused by that, just how that whole situation was set up.
Yeah, just like looking at the picture, like definitely, you want to have the neck supported. I don't know what the hell kind of harness is that. Um,
Yeah, that is a weird
I
looking
don't know.
harness. Like, I just know it's not supposed to be set up like that. Whatever she did was wrong.
Yeah, it
But
looked
also, she,
crazy. Like
so
what's
what
that part in
Blueface
the
is
back?
best.
Yeah,
What Blueface is basically trying to say is initially he was saying that she was going to be a bad mother. Then they hook back up for like 2 seconds. You know how that goes. They stop arguing for a day, and then now he's
yeah.
like, "Well, it's not that she's a bad mother. It's let's just see what happens." So it's a weird situation where it's like I want to root for people, especially young parents. It's not easy, but at the same time, I wonder about this girl's mental health. Like I wonder if I don't know. Like I don't want to say something fucked up, but I feel like this is not gonna end well. Like this whole story is gonna be one of those stories where like people are gonna say, "Why didn't someone intervene? Why didn't somebody do something?" Like not even just with this baby situation, just the violence in general.
So
The
that's the
mama,
same woman that he was hitting and her dad and all that stuff.
I
That's the
mean,
same person.
yeah, he hit her, but she was hitting him a lot first, and those hits were hitting. Like like I don't know if you know much about Krishan Rock. She's kind of an athlete, like and when he finally did hit her, it was like a hit of defense. It wasn't like he was just trying to fight. Like I can't play the video because I'll probably get hit with a strike or something. But she was beating the shit out of him before he finally hit her once.
Okay, yeah, I know what you're talking about. Yeah, I mean that relationship alone is just toxic, man. Like that's how you know it's toxic when I don't even follow it, but I just see it. You know what I mean? People talking about it,
Exactly.
and the videos are popping up, and I'm like, damn, what the hell going on? So yeah,
It's one of those things that are just on people's timelines, whether they want to hear about it or
yeah,
know about it or not. She needs a psychiatrist and a therapist. You know, with her specifically, I think I they've made reference to some type of sexual trauma that happened in the household. Blueface has made fun of about it. Like he's kind of brought it up in a mocking kind of a fashion. The nigga's an asshole. He's a real terrible human being. But he's made reference to the fact that, Rock has claimed that she was sexually assaulted by somebody in her family. So when you have a person who's had that level of trauma and you never deal with that shit, and then you become a parent, and then you're doing all this alcohol, you're doing all these drugs, you're doing all of this stuff. Like, if people aren't thinking about postpartum depression, all of that stuff can be a recipe for disaster. So, like, I'm not trying to mock sis. I hope she get her shit together. Like, I saw her on this TV show. She was pregnant and barefoot, about to fight somebody. Shit's crazy. it's and she's from Baltimore, and people from Baltimore, they're kind of like that. But I hope she get her shit together because it's a very sad looking situation.
yeah, man. Your friend from Baltimore on my stream too.
Who
I say your friend from Baltimore, the one on my stream earlier.
who are you talking about?
the blue hair person.
The blue hair gentleman. Oh no, like here's the thing. I'm a person that like, and you mentioned this in your stream also. Like you need to start blocking people more. That's what I do. I don't like announce that I'm blocking you. I see a couple of problematic things, and I just go, okay, let me go ahead and block you right quick.
Nah, you
I don't
right
need to
there.
let you know that you being blocked. That's childish. So when I blocked that individual, this is early on. This was back in January, right around the time you showed up, and you probably know from your experience in this space. Before you start talking to people, you got to kind of make sure they're not crazy. So when you showed up, I was like, let me make sure, you know, like he's. I didn't know if you were cool with hybrid at the time, so I'm like, let me make sure he's not one of those. But I went to your channel, and then this gentleman with this big deep ass voice on there talking about, oh, I hate black men. Oh, I don't like black men. I'm from Baltimore. I'm like, okay, we get it, we get it. You're one of those. All right, let me go ahead and just block you, like, and be done
Yeah,
with it.
yeah.
So instead of arguing with people, like, it's not necessary, not all the time.
Nah, I get that. That person is kind of one of them people. There's some people that are a little crazy that I just let rock a little bit. But the other person, that person might get blocked. That Ayana chick, cause she be, I don't know. That
Ayana,
other
who's
one that
that?
was in there, she changed her name like a million times, but she was just saying some wild shit.
I was in and out of the stream. I would come in and talk shit, then go to another stream. Like, but she seemed kind of cool. She seemed like she was blow. Like she had a couple of drinks. Maybe she was just.
Well, nah, because she be kind of like trying to say some act like trying to insinuate some shit going on. Like, no, get the hell out of here. But like, and it's like you're clearly like obsessed. You know what I mean? And it's like, nah, can't be having all
Oh,
that.
yeah, it's one of
Yeah,
those kind of things. Like
yeah, yeah.
I
You
don't do
can't
the
be doing
weird
that.
dating. I don't date people on you. Well, I'm not available, but like I could imagine like dating people on YouTube. It feels it feels different. It's not like Instagram. It's not like any of those other social media platforms. I feel like it's a weird place to find a date. But hey, if you find love, you find love.
Right, right.
But I think I'm gonna wrap this stream up. It was on some rando type shit. Definitely wanted to get your opinion specifically about that. Like, I mean, I said some rude shit on this stream, but I do hope that for the most part, people aren't as hostile. That it's not as dramatic going into 2024. Like the
Right.
holiday season is coming up. We can beef through the whole season, or we can not say shit to each other, and everybody grows their own platform, do their own thing.
Right. And
I'm
you
gonna
notice
shoot
like
for
I
the
didn't
latter.
really right. And you notice I didn't really attack, I just critiqued the podcast, but I'm not really necessarily attacking nobody personally. You know what I mean? They can take it how they want to take it. But I'm just saying, like, that was kind of, that wasn't cool. Like, if just leave the
Right.
person alone. Yeah, just leave people alone. That's like you said, going into holidays is coming up. If you say you out of that space, be out of the space. And that's that.
Well, I definitely took some personal attacks. So, not too personal, but a couple of digs. But for the most part, like I'm over it. It's like how many times are we gonna keep dissing y'all? Like we get it. My mouthpiece is vicious. We don't need to keep doing it no more. I'll wave the white flag. You won.
I don't think they mentioned
Okay.
you though. I don't think they mentioned you in the
Oh, they have in the past. Like I had to let the moose know that I'm not playing with her. Like she said some slick shit, and I'm like, look, sweetie, you want to talk about your criminal history? We can get real messy. I'm sick of y'all niggas. I'm real like, I'm
yo.
sick of y'all. I'm sick of y'all. Like, but it is what it is. I really do. You know what? It would have been cool if they kept shit on YouTube, and we could have just been like YouTube enemies or whatever. But like, once you start crossing the line into people's real life and shit, it's like, okay,
Yeah, yeah.
all right,
Can't be
now
doing
we
that.
can't be doing that shit. But it was great having you on,
All right, man. Appreciate it,
Fran.
man.
Anytime, anytime. Fran, I'm gonna hit you up in the Discord. Cynical, same thing. Yeah, this is on some random shit. I'm probably gonna put this on private. I like having these little conversations with you guys. Just get in there and write quick and get the fuck up out of here. But what time is it? It's 10:30, so I made some good time. You guys enjoy the rest of your night.